everyone, it's Leela from MsKissKreations. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm wanting to show you how I created this beautiful dirty pour peekaboo tumbler. I tried making this video as short as I can, so please bear with me. I will also be offering a coupon code in my description below for the materials that I use today on this tumbler. I'll also be linking some websites, some YouTube channels, and of course some of my YouTube videos to make this tumbler go a little bit more easier for you. Before we get started, I do want to go over this packaging of all of these paints from Arteza. If you see on the outside, it illustrates all 36 colors that's in here. Once you go ahead and open the box, these are all individually packaged, and there's 3 rows of all of these paints. And they're all categorized by their color scheme. So all the blues and like the greens are on one sleeve. All the yellows and the oranges are together. They put all the pinks and the reds together. So it's very easy to keep these organized and they're not scattered around your craft room. I also want to go over this glitter that Arteza has. There are 54 glitter jars. And on the back of the box, it's also listed every single color that comes inside of this box. So I love that about that, so you can keep organized with all of your glitter. So when you open up the box, you also have all of these jars separated out, like the paints, and all of the glitters are individually packaged. There's probably every color of the rainbow in this box, from red, hot pink, you got coral, brown, gold, teal. This is especially great for beginners who are just starting out using glitter, whether you're using it for nails, tumblers, any projects that you have, because a lot of times you don't know what glitters you want to use. So buying this pack is really, really convenient. And this looks like a small bottle, but a little bit of glitter goes a long ways. You'll be surprised how long you keep your glitter. And it's great because once you're done with this, you put it right back in its spot and you just close the box and you just store it away. So you don't have your glitters spread all over your craft room and there's no mess or anything. It's really convenient and I love how organized it is. If you would like to purchase any of this non-toxic craft glitter or the acrylic paints that I'll be using in my video today, I will be offering a 10% off coupon code in my description below. I will also be linking the website of where you purchase all of these products that I'll be using, and you can always visit the Arteza YouTube channel for inspiration for your crafts and projects. Again, everything will be linked in the description below. I decided to go with a purples and blues color scheme. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the purple glitter on the base using the epoxy method, let that dry, and then I'm going to do my dirty pour with the blues. Let's go ahead and get started. Today I'm working with a 10-ounce Ozark Trail stainless steel tumbler. I did purchase this tumbler from Walmart. For my first step, I went ahead and prepped my tumbler. What I did to prep my tumbler is all I do is I take off the packaging or the label of the tumbler, and then I go ahead and wipe the tumbler down with 91% alcohol. I don't sand my tumblers or anything. All I do is wipe it down with alcohol, and I make sure I do not touch the tumbler with my hands. You don't want any oils getting onto the tumbler that the epoxy might repel whenever you go and epoxy the tumbler. Once I've prepped my tumbler, I went ahead and I sprayed my tumbler with a flat white spray paint. The spray paint that I used for this tumbler is Rust-Oleum, and it is the flat white. The names of the glitters will be listed in my description below of this video, but I just want to go ahead and go over the names with you. I'm going to be using Holographic Violet, Violet Rose, Holographic Pink, Plum Purple, and Snow White. Alright y'all, so now I am going to go ahead and apply the glitter onto my tumbler with the epoxy method. If I sound funny, it's because I have my respiratory mask on to protect me from the epoxy. So I'm going to try to yell at y'all, but I'm not trying to yell in a rude manner. I'm just trying to raise my voice so you can hear me. So I did go ahead and mix my epoxy off camera. I do have a video that will be linked in my description below to teach you how to mix epoxy properly. And I do have a video that I will be linking as well on how to apply glitter to a tumbler using the epoxy method. So it is a more detailed video. Again, that will be in my description below. I'm going to now apply a little amount of epoxy onto the tumbler. Now that I have the epoxy on the tumbler, I'm going to go ahead and apply my glitter. I wanted to show off more than one color, so that's why I'm using the 4 colors on this. And like I say in most of my videos, it's going to be no rhyme or reason on how I dump this on here. I'm just going to randomly pour it onto the tumbler, around the tumbler until it is completely covered, till I'm satisfied with it. And I would usually pick up this and put it back inside the glitter container. But since this tumbler is going to be with multiple colored glitters, at the end I'm just going to take my catch paper and put it on the bottom of my tumbler. So I use the purple and then I use the holographic purple. Now I'm using the violet rose, which is a lighter purple. And I'm just dumping it onto the tumbler. And now I'm going to use the holographic pink. I like to call these type of cups throw up cups. I know it doesn't sound too pleasant, but I like it. Literally throwing up glitter. It's the best thing to do. I love this holographic pink. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but it has a nice holographic hue to it. I'm going to go back and fill in some blanks. Some spots that are white. I just want an even coat of glitter on the tumbler. And then I'm going to take the Snow White and I'm just going to see how it's going to look in some spots of this tumbler. I just wanted to have some more depth to it. Again, this is going to be the dirty pour, so this doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of this is going to be covered up, but you just want all the tumbler to be covered just in case some of the acrylic paint doesn't hit a certain spot. My luck, if the acrylic paint doesn't hit a spot and it's bare, that's going to be the spot that I didn't hit with glitter. Now I'm going to hit my tumbler arm and bat off the excess glitter. It's going to fall into my catch paper. I'm going to take my catch paper and I'm just pushing the glitter into the middle of the tumbler, kind of mixing it. I'm going to then turn off my turner, take my arm off my turner, and just blot my tumbler onto my paper. Just like that. This part's probably not going to be shown as much, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Just want you to see this beautiful shine. These glitters are gorgeous. Look at that sparkle. It's going to really sparkle and pop whenever I epoxy this. Then I'm going to put my tumbler back on my turner. I'm going to turn my turner on, and then I'm going to let this spin for 2 to 4 hours. Typically, if you put a little bit of epoxy on the tumbler like I did, it'll dry in about 2 hours. If you put a heavier coat, it'll probably dry in about 3-4 hours. So I'll be back once this is completely dry for the next step. Alright y'all, I am back and my tumbler has been spinning for a couple hours. It is dry underneath the glitter. So now I'm going to move on to my next step. I do have my mask on, so I hope you can hear me. The next step is going to be epoxy.
I did mix my epoxy off camera. I have probably 10 mLs in here. I have been doing other tumblers, so I think it's about 10 mLs. Again, this is a 10-ounce tumbler. So I'm going to go ahead and just apply my epoxy onto my tumbler like I would any other any other epoxy method. So again, my epoxy underneath my glitter is dry, and I'm just adding a coat of epoxy over my glitter. Once I've added the coat of epoxy and I'm satisfied, I'm going to let this spin on the turner for about 4 to 6 hours. Once it has spun between 4 to 6 hours, I'm going to then turn off of my turner, and then I'm going to let it sit for another couple hours or so. So I'm probably going to let this sit and dry for at least 8 hours.
Okay, y'all, I'm back, and my tumbler has been spinning and drying on its turner for about 8 to 9 hours. And this is how it looks when it is finished and cured. So you see all the different colors of the glitter that I added in there. And you can make this your own way. You can add more dark glitter, you can add more of the light glitter, more of the white, more of the pinks, whichever way you would like this. These are the 6 acrylic paints that I am using for this tumbler. I am using Pearl White, Glacier Blue, Pearl Sky Blue, Pearl Electric, Turquoise, and Earl Sea Green. Again, all of my colors will be listed in my description below of this video. So to make the acrylic paints drip onto the tumbler or down the tumbler, you're gonna need to thin it out because acrylic paint is thick and it's hard for it to really drip. So the way you thin it out is using water. This is just water from my sink put inside of a bottle, and what I do is I using my X-Acto knife and I pinched a hole in here so it doesn't have a heavy flow whenever I go to pour it into the cup. You're going to want to thin out your paints in all separate cups, so I do have 6 little measuring cups for each different color. I have 6 popsicle sticks. You can always break your popsicle sticks in half. And then I have my main cup, and this is where you're going to combine all the colors together. I've uncapped all of my acrylic paints, and now I'm just going to squeeze some into each cup, each specific color separately. Just to show you the amount of acrylic paint that I put in each cup, it does vary. This is a 10-ounce tumbler, so it's a smaller cup, and I am using 6 colors, so I'm gonna have a lot of acrylic paint. If you are using a bigger cup, you're obviously gonna want add a little bit more paint, depending on the size of your tumblers. Now that each of my color is in its separate cup, I'm then gonna use my bottle of water, and I'm going to just add a little drop of water to each cup. Now, like anything you do, you can always add more. So I always add a little first, and then I add more as I go. So I'm going to add some, and then I will mix it. And then if I feel the consistency isn't runny enough, I'll go ahead and add more water to it. Okay, so I'm going to take my popsicle sticks, and I'm just going to mix each color inside its own cup, and I'm going to use a different popsicle stick for each color. So you don't want to mix these colors just yet. You want to keep all the colors, all the popsicle sticks completely separate in its own cup without mixing any of them. Did mix my paints and I added the water into them. I do believe I have a good consistency. Let me explain a good consistency and a bad consistency. So you're wanting to add enough water so whenever you pull your popsicle stick out of this cup, the paint will drip. So you see how it is dripping? I did make one with not enough water, so I'll go ahead and add water off camera, but I just want to show you how it is for you not to have a good consistency. So you see how long it took that to drip? It doesn't have a nice drip to it. So with this paint, you want to add more water. And I'd rather have too much water than too little, because I'd rather have a drip than no drip at all. And if you have too much water in this one and just the right amount of water in this one, we're going to be mixing these colors together. So this is going to overflow on this one, and this color is going to help this one run down the tumbler. Right, now we're going to move on to the next step. You're now going to take your bigger cup. I am using a 3-ounce Dixie cup, and I do have a piece of paper towel here that I did cut so I can place my popsicle sticks on my paper towel. So now you're going to take each color. So I'm just grabbing any color that I grab first, and you're going to pour it into the bigger cup. So you're going to pour it straight down. You don't have to pour it all into the cup. So I did leave some left over. So here you go here. You see how sometimes it doesn't go into the cup itself, or like it doesn't spread evenly? That's fine. Don't overthink this. You're just pouring each color into the cup. So see, it didn't evenly spread. That's okay. You just want to keep pouring on top of each other. That had a lot of water in there, which is okay. And then I'm pouring my next color. See, this one doesn't have that much water in there, but pouring with the other color that had a lot of water, it's going to even itself out. And then my next color, then my white. Just pouring each color, and I'm kind of taking my popsicle stick and I'm scraping the sides just to get the rest of them out. And then now I'm just going to go back and scrape the sides of each color into the cup. I'm just pouring it whichever way it decides to fall. And if I grab another color that's not the same color that I grabbed and synced before, like I'm not going in any specific order of the colors. I'm just grabbing a color. Whichever color I grab first is whichever color I grab. I hope you're able to see this on the camera. Now you see how it looks like a hot mess? It's okay. We're just gonna keep pouring all of this until all of my paints are all poured out and into the Dixie cup. I don't know if I have enough white, but we're still going to pour some. Scrape the sides. And then now for my last color, this is like my favorite color. I love this blue. Okay. All right, and then you're going to have a cup that looks like that. So I don't want to mix it, but I just want to show you how it looks on the inside. Now, if you pour more colors, then, or if you pour more paint, I should say, then it might not be the same looking as mine. But as long as you just pour it on top of each other over and over again, you'll be fine. For the next step, you're going to do the dirty pour with the acrylic paint. So I just want to show you my setup first. So what I have here is I use a spray paint can. I chose a spray paint can because everybody or a lot of people has a spare spray paint can in hand. And then I put a paper plate underneath my spray paint can just so the catch paints can fall onto the plates. And this is my specific dirty pour spray paint can. So you can use the same one over and over again whenever you're done with yours. And then I just place my tumbler right on top of there, and make sure you do have it even because you do want the acrylic paint to fall evenly around the tumbler. Now that I have all of my paints poured, I'm gonna now use a popsicle stick and I'm just gonna place this to the side. I'm gonna take my tumbler, let me switch hands here. I'm gonna take my Dixie cup, that's probably gonna be easier. I'm gonna take my Dixie cup, take my tumbler, put it on the bottom. I'm going to hold tight with this Dixie cup. And then I'm just going to let it fall on top of the tumbler. Place back on to my station or my spray paint can. And I'm just going to let it sit on there for a couple seconds or so. I'm allowing the paint inside of the Dixie cup to come down onto the tumbler. Let the paints run down. Let me try to get this. Let the paints run down and kind of let gravity take over. So I'm going to scoot this up a little closer for you. And now I'm going to release my Dixie cup onto the tumbler. And then all the paints are going to run down. Look inside the cup. That's my favorite part. And so if you have some paints that's still in the Dixie cup that might want to run down, like you see here, just let it run down onto the sides of the cups. Or excuse me, in the side of the tumbler. It might take a couple seconds or so to have all the paints run down from the cup, but you want to keep that flow of the paints not being mixed. So you could just carry it around anywhere. And then what you can do is you can spin your paper plate, and you could see my tumbler wasn't even. So remember I mentioned that in the beginning, my tumbler was slanted to the right, which is fine because that's an easy fix. But if you want to make it a little easier, make sure your tumbler is even and it's not like mine. So I'm just trying to tap the excess paints that's inside of the Dixie cup onto the side of my tumbler. Okay, so now I'm going to straighten up this tumbler, try to make it as straight as I can. And then now with my bigger popsicle stick, a smaller popsicle stick works fine, but I find it easier for me personally to use the bigger one. So this side is covered. So now I'm going to spin this your way towards the camera. I'm going to take half of this and then I'm just going to push it alongside the tumbler so it can drip down. And now you're going to start to see that dirty pour or that nice effect of the acrylic paints moving down the tumbler. Then I'm going to spin it around the other way. I'm going to take the rest of the spot. You could see that it's rised over here. The rest of the paints and just kind of push it off the tumbler again. And again, you're going to see that effect of all the paints running down the tumbler. And I personally scrape and I kind of press down on the bottom of the tumbler because I don't want any lumpy parts of the bottom, or I don't want any of the paints of the bottom to be lumpy on the bottom of the tumbler. So to me, I scrape it. Again, this is going to be a peekaboo tumbler, so you don't have to make this bottom perfect. You're going to want to do peekaboo anyway, so you could always clean it up at the end here, and I'll show you that towards the end of the video. For this next step, I'm going to take the excess paint that dripped onto my paper plate. I'm going to take my bigger popsicle stick. Again, I do like using my bigger popsicle stick. I also had a small plastic spoon that this worked with well as well. I'm going to scoop some of my excess paints and I'm just going to drip it onto the tumbler. I'm just randomly scooping and randomly dripping, just to make more of that dirty pour effect that we're looking for around the tumbler. So you can spin your plate again, just like you did in the beginning, and just randomly drip onto the tumbler. And for this spot here, if you don't like this personally, or if you want to keep it that way, that's fine, because we are doing a peekaboo tumbler, so you're going to have some of the glitter exposed. You can take your excess paint and drip it on the sides of the tumbler like so. So you don't have to start dripping your paints on top of the tumbler, I should say the bottom of the tumbler. You can drip it all around the tumbler because this effect is very random. So there's no messing this up. There's no rhyme or reason on where you drip it, on how you drip it. So you really just have fun with this and just be as creative or random as you can or as you will with this. I personally don't like wasting too much stuff, so the reason why I like doing this is not only because it helps the tumbler with the overall look, but it also helps me not waste my paints. And while I'm scooping, I'm not trying to mix it too much. I'm just trying to scoop it and keep the colors kind of separated. Once you're satisfied with the way your tumbler looks, let me do a spin for you. You can then leave it alone and just let it dry. This typically takes about 2 to 3 hours to completely dry. And it's still not done dripping, so you see the drips here. Just let it drip. Gravity is still going to take over and the paints are still going to drip. If you have little pieces poking through the bottom, you could choose to take this excess paint and drip it and try to cover it up, or you can leave it the way it is. I'm not going to mess with it. I'm just going to leave it because, again, we are doing a peekaboo tumbler. So I will be back with this video in a couple hours when this paint dries. And we are back, and I've let my tumbler sit. I've been gone for about 4 hours. So let's see if it's dry. And a good way to tell if it's dry is without touching it. If it is still wet, is just tap the top and to see it's completely dry, and it is. I'm gonna now take my tumbler off of my paint can, and I'm just gonna, what I do is I just unstick this. It sticks to it, and then I just throw away the paper plate and the popsicle stick. The bottom of this paint can will completely dry in about 10 to 12 hours, so whenever it does, you could just peel it right off and then use it for next time. So for this next step, you're gonna need the materials that you see below. This is when we're going to make the peekaboo effect. So I have my napkins, and I always cut out my paper towels in squares. I have my X-Acto knife. I have my acetone. This acetone is Jasco Brand, and I just keep it in this nail polish remover container. It is 100% acetone, and you can purchase the brand that I use at Walmart or Lowe's. And then I have some Q-tips. Sometimes I use these, sometimes I don't, and I'll explain that later in the video. So I have my tumbler here, and it is completely dry. And if you notice the rim up top from the dripping of the acrylic paints, it doesn't leave it to have a smooth finish. So what I do is I take my X-Acto knife, and if you don't have an X-Acto knife, I've also used a razor blade, but just be very, very careful because a razor blade is a lot more sharp than an X-Acto knife. And then I just take my X-Acto knife and I kind of clean up the rim. Sorry about that, I want to get it on camera. So I just take my knife and I clean the rim. And whenever I do this, I make sure to apply pressure towards the inside of the tumbler, because I've noticed sometimes whenever I'm not really thinking about this, just cleaning the rim, I sometimes apply the pressure towards the outside and then my X-Acto knife slips. So if it does slip, I want it to slip inside the tumbler and not outside the tumbler, so it doesn't ruin the design of the tumbler. So it doesn't have to be perfect. I just made it so the rim won't have that drip effect like it did before. We'll clean this up at the end inside the tumbler. What I'm gonna do next is I'm going to now take my 100% acetone. I'm going to wet my paper towel. You can also use a clean rag. And then I'm going to take my paper towel and kind of make a point to it. And I'm just going to randomly rub around the tumbler and kind of rub off the acrylic paints. A lot of y'all know I work better whenever I have my tumbler arm inside of my tumbler. So I went ahead and I just added that. So if you start noticing the glitter peeking through the tumbler. And I've also changed to a rag. It looks like I put a thicker coat, or there was a thicker coat of acrylic paint that was on here. So the rag just has a more coarse or rough feel. So it takes off the acrylic paint easier than my paper towels. So again, it is up to you, whatever you have on hand or whatever is easier for you. And you're just going to do this around the entire tumbler. And you see the glitter poking through. Just going to repeat this process around the entire tumbler. So every time I start a new area, what I do is I take my acetone and then I reapply my acetone onto my rag or my napkin, because you want a fully drenched rag. You want it to be covered completely. You want to really soak the tumbler with the acetone. So I went ahead and I finished this off camera. It was really hard doing all of it around my tripod. So I just repeated my steps. And again, you can make the glitter peekaboo as much as you want, or you can leave it as little as you want. I personally like it like this. So I think I'm going to leave it like this. It shows the design of both the glitter and the dirty pour. So now I'm going to use my Q-tips. Sometimes I use my Q-tips and sometimes I don't. For this one I will, just to show y'all, and I would anyways. So what I do is I take my acetone, I pour it inside of its lid. I then dump my Q-tip inside of the lid, and then what I do is I use my Q-tip to kind of clean up the inside of the glitter spots. So I do this just to make the glitter pop more. Because sometimes whenever you're wiping the dirty pour acrylic paint off of the tumbler, sometimes the paint will run across where you're trying to wipe. So it won't give that nice pop look. So I do this just to clean up any edges. And then, like I say in all my videos, don't forget the bottom. And you see I brought the glitter around to the bottom, the pop to the bottom of the tumbler. Here's the finished look, and it is ready for epoxy. After this step, I'm going to go ahead and go right into epoxy in it. I don't have to let this dry or anything. So I'm going to turn off my camera, mix my epoxy, and I'll be right back. And here's what it looks like when it's done. You can see the purple glitter peeking through that metallic acrylic paint. I love how this turned out. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe.